And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford. Come right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do whatever it is that you can to go ahead and support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, including going ahead and subscribing today. Hit that subscribe button right below LakerTom right there on YouTube. Right there below LakerTom. Go ahead. You can do it. You can do it. Plus, also as well, if you can go ahead and be a part of what we do here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, wherever we're at, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, podcast outlets, whatever we do to go ahead and support you, the viewer and listener out there for the Lakers Fast Break. We hope you do so in kind indeed, and we truly appreciate it. Plus, also as well, go ahead and give a big support to Lakerholics.com. Go ahead and follow the number one Lakers blogger that's out there in LakerTom today at Lakerholics.com. And check out also our good friend in Pismo, somewhere in the Pismo, right there for you, is Jammie Sweet. Go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the 5 Things article. So he won't be there today, unfortunately, for the show. And we know Joe, a.k.a. Ox1947, is checking out the Dodgers and Giants in San Francisco, checking out that weekend clash. But if there's anything going on at LakersBall.com, go ahead. You know he will be a part of it. So go ahead and check that out today at LakersBall.com. Plus our good friends at Hoopheads Podcast Network. If you could support all of that, it is truly appreciated. And a big shout out to Josh for just asking us and talking to us here at the Lakers Fast Break, LakersFastBreak at yahoo.com. Also as well, the people behind the scenes, whether you're tweeting at us, whether you're emailing us, you're asking about updates, you're asking for shows, you're asking to check out our local schedule. We want to try and stick to, until the games start, we're going to try and stick to a Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern schedule. We're going to try and stick to that as best we can up into the regular season. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that continuously throughout the next couple of weeks as we get into training camp, LeBron's mini camp, and so much more. So looking forward to it indeed. But if you can go ahead and check out everything that we do here at the Lakers Fast Break, it is sincerely appreciated. Well, the Lakers heading into the LeBron minicamp, and in the not too distant future, you know, LakerTom, there's actually a game that's coming up on the 30th. The first exhibition game, I believe, is scheduled for the 30th, not for the Lakers, mind you, but the NBA as a whole. So we're going to start seeing some NBA exhibition games right around the corner within the next 2 weeks. We're going to see some of the teams heading abroad for some exhibition games. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the NBA does when they venture abroad here in the coming weeks. Plus, of course, in all the different places that they go ahead and have the exhibition games leading up to the season. But one of the things that we're talking about here is the recent acquisition as a free agent for Dennis Schröder. Where does he fit in into all this? We talked about that a little bit on the Thursday show, but we really want to go ahead and focus in, actually on the Friday show, on the Friday show. And we really want to go ahead and focus in on now, where does he stand as far as the rotation? And with all the guards that we now have on the team, what is the rotation now going to be for the Los Angeles Lakers? I know that so many different individuals out there have speculated on it, so we'll talk about that on today's show. Plus, I know LakerTom and I were talking before the show about some of the good things that were going on as far as outside of the general Lakers consensus out there, because if you didn't know, the Lakers are having a reunion right now in Hawaii, which I wish I was there right now. That's a great place to be, the beautiful islands of Hawaii, because the Showtime Lakers are having a great reunion right now in Hawaii. And I know LakerTom always wants to go ahead and focus in on what we're doing here during the current situations with the Lakers, and we will continuously on that. But I wanted to ask him real quick if we could go ahead and ask his thoughts on a time period for the Lakers as a Lakers fan, and if the Showtime Lakers was the best time period for a Lakers fan, or at least him in his thoughts indeed. So another great show on hand. Wes Trueblood is already in the chat room. Thank you so much for joining us, Wes. Great to have you here. And again, shout out to Nick, shout out to Josh, and everybody who wants our shows and asks for our shows via email or Twitter. Did you guys see the report from Mark Stein, which said more or less that the Lakers are holding tryouts for underwhelming, my word, not Stein's, free agent wings? Oh, you mean like Shabazz Muhammad? Yeah, actually, I saw the list or lack thereof of who they were thinking about bringing in for at least a look at training camp. Your thoughts, Tom, before we get into the nitty-gritty on a guard rotation on that?
Well, it's right in the heart of the guard rotation because like the last 2 years, the Lakers have some idea that a 6'3" point guard or shooting guard is a wing. I mean, we were so undersized last year that it was sad to watch. We lost the battle in the points in the paint. We lost the rebounding battle. And if you've ever played basketball yourself, when you get killed in the paint and totally out-rebounded by the other team, you usually do not win the game. And that was the case with the Lakers last year. But this has reached a level of ridiculousness. The roster construction is so bad. It is so bad that it screams has to be a Russell Westbrook trade.
I have
to
laugh.
Wriggling on the ground in pain. It's thrashing all over the place. It's convoluting. It's just falling apart, and it's screaming as loud as it can. Get rid of Russell Westbrook because this lineup needs some players. I mean, right now they're talking about. Let's see. I think that Patrick Beverley is 6'3", if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we have 4.
Patrick Beverley at 6'3" is no longer a point guard on the Lakers. No, he is now officially their wing defender.
Yes, a small forward.
I remember, I remember KCP used to be our wing defender. I mean, how many players? I could list a dozen right now of guards in the NBA who feasted on our wing defenders. I mean, when you have a wing defender of 6'5", that's not bad. But, guys, you're guarding guys that are 6'8", 6'7", 6'9". The Lakers are so small. We have, like 8 guards under 6'3" or 6'4". Russell is the biggest guard we have, actually, other than Reeves, who's 6'5", I guess. But
he looks a lot taller matched up with those guys standing next to them.
It's just laughable. I mean, what kind of rocker? What it says to you is that the original plan was that, okay, we need a bunch of stuff. We need shooting, we need defense, we need size. Well, first off, you can't get shooting for a minimum salary anywhere anymore. So we decided we were going to leave that for the Westbrook trade. And then we put everything else, getting younger, getting more athletic, getting maybe a little better perimeter defenders. We put all of that into the roster, and now we're at a point where we have to finalize the deal. And the Lakers are either posturing beautifully and saying that we are not going to make a deal except one that is just for a single draft pick. We're not going to give up 2 draft picks, not for anything that's out there on any of the trades. If that's true, the Lakers are going to bring Russell Westbrook back, which will be a horrifying mistake. The other option is that the Lakers have done a beautiful job of choreographing and confusing everybody, and at the end they'll give up the 2 picks or work out a compromise with a swap, a pick swap, rather than the pick itself, which for the other team is essentially the same thing. All they're losing is a second pick, which if they're a good team is a high, high 20s draft pick. But the Lakers just, they're everything that is happening, everything that you look at when you look at the construction of the roster, everything when you consider that they have 4 point guards, when you consider that the other 2 of the 3 point guards, 2 of the other point guards have history with Russell Westbrook that's not great. Um, all of these things just basically scream that there's going to be a trade. So um, until Russell Westbrook trots out on the court on September 30th wearing purple and gold again, I am going to swear that this is all posturing and that the trade is going to happen for somebody, because they cannot bring back Russell Westbrook as a Laker. That would be disastrous.
I'm just going to tell you right now, that's 12 days to the 30th, just to let you know.
Yeah.
T minus
It's not
12.
going to happen. I don't care if it's 50 days or 100 days. It is not going to happen. It can't happen, Gerald. If that happens, you know what that proves? It proves the sky is orange. It proves that the Lakers are a joke, that Rob Pelinka is an idiot, that Jeannie Buss ought to sell a team, which I know you agree with, but at any rate, and probably that that LeBron James may demand a trade.
Well, again, it's leading to a lot of things. I will let everybody know that the Lakers' first exhibition game is on the 3rd. The first exhibition games that will be played by NBA teams is going to be on the 30th. So we're just 12 days away from that. But if, like what Tom's saying, is by the 3rd, if he trots out there in purple and gold, somebody check on LakerTom, because he might be having a heart attack indeed. But I do want to go ahead and mention the roster, as was corrected by Jeff Green and Blue Magic. Want to go ahead and mention that Patrick Beverley is 6'1". He's listed at, according to the roster.
6'1". He's our wing defender at 6'1".
Yes. He's our wing defender at 6'1". He could actually literally play small forward and guard small forwards at 6'1". That's just absolutely amazing. I understand that he did play in certain matchups against a Kevin Durant and some other taller forwards, even played a little bit against LeBron.
Pat plays bigger than 6'1". I will admit that.
But not to the point where it gets like that, because then it just gets ridiculous, and then they just have a lot of fun scoring on him. But I will say that with the guard rotation as it is right now, barring a Westbrook trade, which LakerTom and everybody is still, it's going to happen. Westbrook is 6'3". Patrick Beverley is 6'1". Dennis Schröder is listed as 6'3", which is very dubious. Kendrick Nunn is listed at 6'2". If he's even healthy, we don't even know if he's ready for 5-on-5 contact. They've been very vague, the team has.
So we have 3 small guards.
Yes. And Max Christie at 6'6" is not going to help you anytime soon. You've always said that.
Small guard. I hate small guards.
Very, very
difficult as a small guard.
Hi, guys. Any new signings? The Dennis Schröder edition does not make sense to me. You have joined the club, my friend, Mr. Jim Faison, because we are all questioning it on why he's returning a guy that doesn't shoot well from the outside. He had a couple good games in EuroLeague. He is still someone that, again, with all the baggage and the history between him and the organization, why they would bring him back. Mind you, it's at almost an $82 million discount, which is fine. I guess on that sense, the Lakers save money, quote unquote, there. But to bring him back, I just don't see the need for it. Maybe, again, if Kendrick Nunn is maybe not healthy, that could be an issue. That's probably leading into that possibility. What do you think, Tom?
They believe Darvin Ham can handle these types of situations, because when you look at the players, I mean, Russell Westbrook coming off of the bench, Dennis Schröder coming off of the bench. I mean, Dennis and Russell are both players that have extreme egos and definitely are very competitive, and they're not going to sit. It's going to be a difficult challenge for Darvin Ham to have so many players competing for the same few minutes. And even if the plan is that everybody plays defense so hard that we really spread the minutes around and it's 11-man rotation rather than a 9-man rotation, even when you factor that thing in, it's, there's just too many guards. Every year we have too many guards. I don't know what it is. Maybe Rob doesn't like forwards. Is that the idea? Or
he's allergic to forwards. I've got LeBron.
Or they have a novel, different approach that says that wings are not the most important position in the NBA today.
I'll just get a whole bunch of small, bad shooting guards. How about that, LakerTom? Sound good?
Well, we tried it with older guys like that. Now we're trying it with younger, more athletic guys like that can't shoot.
Well, I don't know if you can you do you really consider Pat Bev? Do you really consider Dennis Schroeder? Do you really consider Dennis Schroeder's still 29. Pat Bev, who's 34.
One thing that does
Russell
reflect
Westbrook.
one thing I think you can say that these recent moves reflect is that Darvin Ham has a big voice in who is added to the team. And frankly, I think that's important. I mean, I may change my mind when I start seeing Darvin Ham's lineups and his rotations, but generally,
I'm
I
still
think
waiting
that
for that Jammie.
he's going to hold players accountable on defense. And so if you think about the players that he's bringing in, he's not a whole lot worried about their shooting ability, Now, well, Beverly had 33% last year. He's a 38% career shooter, and his 4 years before that were 38, 39, 40, and 40. So,
but he doesn't shoot that many.
Yeah,
he only
no.
averages 10 points a game in
Right.
his career.
Yeah, he's not Buddy Hield, who's a guy that at the start of the game the coach is going to grab some guy by the collar and say, "See that Buddy Hield guy over there? You never leave his side when you're guarding him.
He has
you
no
don't help out
conscience.
anywhere. You just stay with him so he doesn't get a shot." We play 4-on-4 when we have somebody on the other team like that.
I can't wait until Jammie Sweet, his annual, I guess he's mad against the rotation, so to speak, his verbiage there, and he'll be very angry with the rotations. So I can't wait for that conversation to happen. So big shout out to Jammie Sweet on that. Props to him. I'm sure it's coming. It's on the way. But right now, barring a Westbrook trade, and I agree with Jeff Green, I think the smarter play would be to hold on to him, to Russell Westbrook, until February. But do I think that's going to happen? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's a smarter play to do it now. I think you're
by February 9th, the trade deadline, the Lakers will have played 68% of their games. That means 68% of the season will have gone by. 2/3 of the season. Most players who signed with a new team, recently signed players, will be eligible on December 15th. That's probably the first time that you'll find a bunch of players that you might want to trade Westbrook for available. That's 1/3 of the season will be gone by then. So I just did a bunch of research on looking at how many games were involved in these dates and so forth. But what it comes down to is that if the Lakers don't trade Russell Westbrook this before training camp and wait for the mid-season, they will have to absolutely trade him no matter what.
Yeah.
Because if they don't trade him, they end the season with him as a free agent, and that means the only thing they could trade would be LeBron James or Anthony Davis, or sign and trade for one of their free agents.
Yeah.
And a sign and trade for one of their free agents, the conspiracy theory running around is that the reason that the Lakers want to sign and trade for one of those free agents is a sign and trade will force them not to pay luxury taxes, and will by that nature force them or allow them to avoid becoming 3 years in a row with taxes, which makes you a repeat offender, and that doubles your penalties. So there's a background thing that behind this whole thing is it's all just a game by Jeannie Buss to avoid being a double tax team when they move forward after LeBron.
So let me ask you this, and we close out this part of the conversation because I will have to cut it a little shorter for today, and I do apologize for that. I wanted to ask you this: your final. Let's say Westbrook doesn't get traded, and you do get a migraine, and you do get a headache, and you take aspirin, but you think about it for a sec as far as a starting lineup is concerned. Who are the starting backcourt, and who gets the rotation minutes?
If Russ is here,
yeah, if Russ is here.
I think they would start with Russ and Patrick Beverly, or probably Russ and Austin Reeves and Patrick Beverly as the guards and the small forward.
I would not count out.
They're probably gonna. See, I still have a big problem with. I still think that there's a chance that they're going to revert to 80 at the 5 rather than Thomas Bryant or Damian Jones, because those guys have never had experience at the 5. And frankly, we need size. We need size in the lineup. And so, it's I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do. If they're sticking by everything that I hear, that they really are going to start Bryant, or I've heard Jones is the guy who's winning a job because of his defense in practice. So Damian Jones was listed by several sources as the likely starter at center, which is surprising. So that means that it's just 2 guards. So I would guess it's Beverly and Russ.
I'm going to throw one out there for you. I think that Reeves is the type of player that endears himself to the coach. And if he shoots well in the preseason, I'm going to say he's going to get in with Beverly. I think it's going to be Beverly and him starting out as far as that, and Russ coming off the bench.
I think there's a good chance of that. I like the logic behind that, Gerald. I think that's a good.
He's got to shoot well. He's got to shoot well.
He's got to shoot well. But what he gives you is 2 pretty good defenders, 2 really good defenders, at the point of attack, and that's what we want. If you can't have Buddy Hield out there, then at least cover the other side of the ball, and make sure that you've got somebody that's, if you've got a guy like Jones or Bryant who aren't great shot blockers, you need to have good perimeter defense, because otherwise you're going to put those guys in jeopardy over and over and over. So you need to have one or the other. You need to either have great rim protection or you need to have great perimeter defense. And hopefully, if you get both of them, you've got a championship team.
Jeff Green says he's got Russ and Lonnie Walker the 4th because of the fact that we did spend $6.5 million on him as in the MLE. I mean, if
the word is, I've read from Stein and from Buha that Walker has fallen out of the rotation.
I think whoever does well, I mean, that's the thing. It's an open competition in training camp. Let's say Westbrook stays in for now. Let's say he stays in for now. I think it's an open competition, and whatever two guards does the best in the preseason will, and that includes training camp, will get the starting nod. I have a feeling it could be Lonnie Walker, could be Reeves, could be Beverly, could be Westbrook.
I think Schröder. That what you just said, Gerald, supported very strongly your choice of Austin Reeves and Beverly as the starting guards, because what's going to be important with a young kid as your rim protector, what's going to be important to Darvin Ham is his perimeter point of attack defenders. He's going to want the best 2 guys he can get out there.
I'm just throwing that out.
And I think you're absolutely right. And to be honest, all of this talk about putting Beverly on wings, forget it. What you want Beverly on is the shooting guards, the big shooting guards. Those are the guys that are killing you. These are the 6'5" guys, the bookers, and those are the guys that are just going to destroy you if you don't have a guy who can really belly up and play physical defense without getting called for fouls. And Beverly's shown he can do that. So
I agree with you, Jeff Green. I don't know how Lonnie Walker has fallen out of the rotation, and they haven't even started the LeBron minicamp yet. I think that it maybe is just perception, but I would not.
Let's say that the rotation so far is 10% of what they'll judge on, because they haven't had camp yet. It's pre-camp stuff. So,
exactly.
It doesn't. But that's that's not what you want to hear if you're Lonnie. And I would suspect that most of it is, I mean, like we heard Thomas Bryant was doing great. And then all of a sudden we hear that, the guy who's likely to start is
Damian Jones.
Yeah. But when you think about each one of those things, ask yourself what's important to Darvin Ham. Defense, man.
Yeah. It just, to me, again, I think the options, you're all talking about right now, even if Austin Reeves improves even a little, you're still talking about below average NBA guards for that entire group. So you're not
who are your 4 guards? Who are your 2 backups then?
Well, I
Because
talked to you
four
about
guards really should get most of the minutes.
I talked about Pat Bev and I talked about Austin Reeves. They
Right.
get
So they'll
backups.
say they're the starters. Who are their backups?
It depends if Nunn's healthy. If do you want to say Nunn's healthy or do you want to say Nunn's not
Well,
healthy?
you got Westbrook, Nunn, Walker, and I
Schroeder.
guess Max is the other
Well,
guard. So,
Max has got to go to the G League. If it's based off his summer performance, he needs to develop in the G League. I will say though, again, that if that's the case, I would say the backup two guards should be, if he's healthy, Kendrick Nunn, and we'll give Lonnie Walker the fourth, just because of the size
well,
factor.
I think what's pushed Lonnie Walker back has been the signing of Patrick Beverly and Dennis Schröder. So
his
if you
defense
talk
hasn't
about the
been
next
good.
two guards who they're probably going to be lining up on there, and
It
if
would be
you
Westbrook.
accept the tenet that the reason that Austin Reeves and it comes down to defense again. So who are the defenders? Well, why did they just sign Schröder? They didn't sign him for his shooting.
No,
They
that's
didn't
for
sign
sure.
him for his shooting, man. He's going to get minutes. So he's one of the second string guards, and that leaves you Nunn, Walker, and Nunn and Walker basically fighting for that spot, and Nunn is the likely candidate. Who am I leaving out? Walker, and who's the other guard missing out then?
We talked about it. Well, you got Dennis Schroeder. You got, as far as Russell Westbrook, you've got
We're
Patrick
saying
Beverly.
Schroeder and Nunn are the second string guards, and Reeves and
Patrick Beverly.
Beverly are the starters. Yeah, and that leaves. That's how.
This scares no one in the NBA.
Lonnie didn't make the top four because of defense, man. What was his biggest weakness coming in? What everybody complained about. He's not a consistent defender.
Again, Jeff Green, absolutely. They got Schroeder at a bargain, $82 million less, if the story goes. I still chuckle at that, how he passed up all that money.
It almost as if Rod Pelinka had to do that just in order to be able to say that.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it just
sign him. We're going to cut him next week, but I just want to be in there that we got him for $2.6 million instead of $84 million.
But you got to remember, though, and the Kamenetsky brothers, I will give them credit for it. They reminded us that through all this, as far as the shuffling back and forth of guards over the years, the past couple of years with Westbrook and Schroeder and all that, we've been out 2 first-round picks, and now we have them in lieu of that. So, yeah, and we haven't got much of a return on that. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just nobody gets
all in the great effort to take playmaking duties off of LeBron James' hands.
Yep, and none of those players gets me excited right now. Cole Swider, tell you what, Cole Swider, do what you can to make yourself a viable part of the rotation. Shoot the lights out. Knock them out in the preseason. I'm begging for you, Cole Swider. I'm begging for you, man. How about you, LakerTom?
Well, our biggest weakness is we don't have any backups for LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Our backups are Juan Toscano Anderson and Troy Brown Jr., 2 6'6" guys who've never started, never played big minutes in their entire careers. Those are our primary backups for our 2 superstars. 2 superstars who have had injury issues the last 2 seasons that would thrust Brown Jr. and TCA, into starting positions that would be overwhelming for them. The Lakers have three weaknesses in roster construction that are just unconscionable for any team that wants to think that they can compete for a championship. Number one, they don't have any shooting. Their top 10 players are all subpar shooters. Number two, they don't have any backups for their 2 superstars at the two forward positions. And number three, they're starting a center who's never started before.
Unless they start, if they did start,
or unless they start Thomas Bryant, who's just started for half a season.
Yeah.
Well, 2 halves of seasons.
Well, no,
Half of,
he started. I think he started for a full
he
season.
started at the end of the one season and the start of the second season before he got hurt.
Okay, well, yeah, it's just.
But at any rate, he's an unproven commodity.
Yeah, especially coming off that knee injury as well. So we'll see.
But
A
all of
lot
those
of
things
ifs.
just scream Russell Westbrook trade.
Do we need to rename the team the Los Angeles Ifs? A lot of ifs coming down there.
It's just going to come down to either, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, 0 is they don't trade Westbrook. 10 is they traded him for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. And 8 is probably, okay, they traded him for some bunch of shooters from Utah. And a 5 might be, God, they actually pulled the trigger and brought over, Julius Randle in his 4-year contract. So, anyway, my expectations are about a 0.3, about a 3 right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, my friend.
But I still can't believe, when I look at that roster, something tells me that, how could Rob Pelinka explain this roster to LeBron James on one hand and Jeannie Buss on the other hand and justify that this is my response. This is my response to trading for Russell Westbrook last year. What do you think, guys?
This is very, very
Would
sad.
you like to go to court with that as your defense? Would you like to here's your review, your employment review. This is what you got. This is what you bring into your employer to say, this is what I accomplished.
No, I don't think, John, I don't think, by the way, miss you here, my friend. Hope you can join us on Tuesday or Thursday. I do truly appreciate everyone in the comments. I don't think LakerTom reads too many of the comments. I try to read to him the ones that really affect him or bring that up. But I do appreciate everybody out there going ahead and being a part of the chat room today. Going to have to cut a little shorter than usual. But before we head on out, my friend, I did want to go ahead and say, first off, Tom, I know you wanted to touch on this time period as far as what we're talking about. So we will make some time for you on Tuesday to talk all you want on that. We'll leave the floor open on that. But before we head on out, my friend, I did want to acknowledge one of the great parts of Laker history, and that is the Showtime era. And if you didn't know, as many Showtime players as they could get, I was surprised even Chuck Nevitt is there, my friend. That basically everyone is part. Yeah, Hawaii is calling you, of course. They're in Hawaii. Pat Riley, Magic Johnson, Worthy, Scott, the whole 9 yards. They are at Hawaii right now celebrating the reunion of the Showtime era. So that got me to asking the final question I want to ask you today is that, do you as a Laker fan, and does everyone out there as a Laker fan, do you embrace the Showtime era as the best time for a Lakers fan? Or would you say maybe it's the three-peat with Shaq and Kobe, or the repeat for Kobe in 2009 and 2010?
It's real hard because there's a fourth one that it comes in with me, which was the 33-game win streak in the championship with Wilt and Gail Goodrich. That was the first Lakers championship that I actually saw in person, saw him win in person. So it's hard to separate those things, and what's really unusual is they came at such different periods that a lot of it depends upon what you were doing when that happened, Were you a student at the point in time? I can remember being a student when the Chamberlain situation happened and the Lakers won that championship. I can remember that 30-game win streak and listening on the radio to check during that entire win streak. That was something else. And at that point in time, I was doing something where I could listen to every game, and so forth. Showtime was just, Magic. Magic was always my favorite player growing up, and I tried to be Jerry West because I liked, I liked his moves and so forth, and I could copy his moves, but Magic was the player that was magical in my mind and so forth. And then,
Who is your favorite Laker? Who is your favorite Laker? Blue Magic is asking.
I don't really have a favorite Laker. That's my problem. There's so many of the Lakers I love. I mean, Will was my favorite basketball player, so how can I leave him out? I love Kareem. I love Magic. Kobe. Kobe will always be in that group of people. And I modeled my entire game, my entire life after Jerry West. But what happens is the Kobe and Shaq era coincided with my being able to play basketball and watch basketball with my son. When he was at an age to understand the game and he'd been through enough of playing high school basketball and so forth, that he understood the competition aspect of it and so forth. And I think that was really special part of it. And then LeBron in the post-Kobe death, I had become a girls basketball coach. And so I really loved how Kobe had become a girl dad and so forth. So in each one of those Laker situations has special meaning to me because of where I was in my life when that happened.
Well, a lot of people out there are sharing their thoughts right now on who they feel are the best and their favorite Lakers, and it's great to see that. For me, I would have to say, oh my gosh, it's so tough. It's like choosing your favorite child.
You can't. You can't
so
choose
hard.
your favorite child. You can't choose your favorite child, Gerald. That's something that
and
you
I'm
can't
looking
as
at
a parent do.
my hung up 88 world champion back-to-back shirt, and I remember the times there, and I love the Showtime era, and that was where I was just grew up for the Showtime era. And I love the three-peat with Shaq and Kobe and how exhilarating it was. Then you have the Kobe 2009 2010 teams. Oh my gosh. I guess if you're going to put the proverbial finger to my head and say which one, I guess I got to say the Showtime era, just because it lasted over a longer period of time. But man, it's like picking your favorite kid. It's tough. It's tough.
I think they are like children. You can't pick the favorite.
That's true. I can't pick favorite
Just be
amongst my
glad that you
kids.
had four of them, huh? A lot of teams have none.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do want to get to a question though before we head on out. You guys have been great in the chat, but I know the Range had some thoughts about how the team currently. He thinks the league. He wanted to know outside of Brooklyn and outside of Golden State, who really has the 3-point shooting, and he says there's too much of an emphasis on shooting. The only thing I say back to that the Range is when you have good shooters, that opens up the floor for so many other things. And when you, with LeBron, that now relies heavily on his drives to the basket, and AD, who is now working on, hopefully better on that mid range that he once had, but also as well for lobs and things of that nature, it just opens up the court when you have good shooters that teams respect on the outside. Does it not?
Yeah, I think that the other side of it, though, is that LeBron's game is evolving because of his age. And because of the fact that the Lakers have not been able to surround him with good enough shooters to create the spacing that he really needs. Now, one of the things that won this job for Darvin Ham was that he was bringing to the Lakers the same offense that the Bucks were able to use to get spacing for Giannis, and that's a critical thing that it's related to what you do with your five players and where you locate them. Because a lot of times when Lakers players had the ball free on the top of the key, for example, and they would try to drive to the basket, there was always help on the right side and the left side because of having five players outside of the circle. The Bucks play that differently because basically they take one player, whoever's the first guy down the court, and they put him in a dunker spot, which is sort of a rectangle slot that covers the base of the basket, where the basket is. And what that allows them is with just four players on the perimeter, those four players are spread out further apart than the five players were when you play five out. And as a result, it makes it harder for teams to double team the guys who have the ball at the top of the key, because basically the Bucks send a guy to each corner and you got a guy in a dunker spot. So you got three guys at the baseline and you've got two guys at the top of the key, one on each side of the wing. And they're the guys who get the ball, and they're the guys who are going to get the shots. And for the Lakers, that's going to be Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
Well, I will take a close-up picture just to let everybody know. I know they wanted to see the actual the uniform, the shirt I have from the 87-88. I'll take a close-up picture and post it to Twitter and also Facebook later this evening. Blue Magic says the winning formula for LeBron-led teams is as old as time. Surround him with 3-and-D players. We failed this offseason. Hope this experiment yields fruit. We will definitely talk about more of that
If
on
we don't trade
Tuesday.
Westbrook, we fail this season, off season too.
Well, we'll see. If Westbrook does get traded, we'll go as soon as we can on the air, but we definitely will be here on Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So tune in to LakerTom and myself. Hopefully, John, if you can, try and make it in. We really want you back. You've been tremendous in the chat room. Blue Magic, you've been awesome. Jeff Green, you've been fantastic. Nick Wong, you were on the show as far as in the chat room. Truly appreciate it. The Range, great thoughts as well. You guys have been truly awesome. Again, John, if you can make it, please let me know for Tuesday. But we will be back on Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And if you always, at any time, have questions, requests, again, big shout out to the guys who actually emailed me at LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com in regards to whether or not we're doing shows this weekend and on Friday with the Dennis Schröder acquisition. So truly appreciate you going ahead and doing that. It just shows that you like and enjoy what we do here at the Lakers Fast Break. So that definitely warms my heart. Before we head it out, Blue Magic says, I was expecting a Russell Westbrook trade this weekend, to be honest, but we haven't got it. So maybe it'll come out this week as we head into the LeBron mini camp. And then
when is LeBron's mini camp?
Should be taking place right now.
I keep hearing about that, and I keep hearing about our training camp, but I still can't find out when it starts.
I still can't find out about it either, but it's going to happen soon, my friend, because, again, the Lakers' first exhibition game is on the 3rd.
You know, they may cancel training camp if they can't get rid of Russell. It's possible.
Picture day will be fun. That I know for sure, indeed. Yeah, but
we cannot have training camp yet because we haven't finalized our roster.
Well, we'll see what happens. But again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here with LakerTom. Please catch all the great articles as the #1 Lakers blogger today at Lakerholics.com. Also, as well, Jammie Sweet, when he comes back from Pismo Beach. Got to go ahead and hit him up today at the 5 Things articles at Lakerholics.com. Don't forget, Mr. Dodger in the land of giants, Joe Soro. Watch out, Tom. He's in the Bay Area. Watch out. He is also always at as Ox1947, of course, at LakersBall.com. The LeBron mini camp is apparently taking place in San Diego. My gosh, that's great weather out there too. The dates are unclear. It's got to be taking place this week at the very latest because it's getting closer and closer to training camp. And if we find out any news like that, we will let you know. But we will definitely be back Tuesday. Looking forward to a great conversation. Jammie Sweet from Pismo. The roster is done and is getting until after 12:15. Jammie Sweet and LakerTom, take your arguments and discussions over to Lakerholics.com or be here on Tuesday, my friend. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting John back, Jammie Sweet back, Joe Soro back. LakerTom will be here, hopefully. We're going to have a great time talking about what's coming up for the Lakers, regardless of who they have on the rotation, because it's always great conversation from you out there and from us over here, right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. Thanks so much for watching and listening, everyone. Hope you have